Here we go. Okay, so what I want to do today is try to make some kind of like trap beats or beats like Drake or Travis Scott, and one of the elements that is pretty common in those is a my hi-hat, a hi-hat that is really fast. So what I've and they have these little rolls. So you'll have a normal hi-hat for a couple like a little roll like that. So my strategy is that I've set this tempo in this pattern to 170, which is pretty fast. It's double like 85, which would be a good slow hip hop beat. So what I've done is then gone to the sequencer, and we can tap out something like that. You see I have this going on another one already. Okay, so that's like a cool little fill. And the goal is that we're going to try to resample this onto a pad so that we can play it with one note. Just that. So now we're going to go to Shift Record. Cycle over. I just realized if you cycle one more, it tells you how much memory is left on that all sample file. So this one has a lot of samples imported into the memory already, because it's usually starts at 270 seconds, but now it's at 83. And instead of audio in, we're going to change this to resampling. So this is just going to take what the sequencer plays and sample it back into the memory. So this is one way. If you have 16 parts or you have 4 parts, the way, when Queen was doing Bohemian Rhapsody or the Beatles were recording on a 4-track recorder, you could do 3 tracks and then bounce it down to the 4th track, and then that would become your first track, and you could start overdubbing over that. So this is a way of resampling into another part, and then you could set that part to be a loop, and you'd have your whole sequence playing on one pad, and you could start building around it. So with that having been said, when we hit play here, it should play the sequencer if I'm remembering it correctly, and then we're going to hit stop after 1 bar. Okay, so that's exactly what I wanted. Cool. So we're going to take this hi-hat, we're going to switch it over to what we just recorded, which is getting gated a little there. So now we can take our sequence time and set it back down to 85, and it should play at double time. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to go in real quick. I have these 808 sounds that I've been recording. I'll see if I can find where I got these from. But we'll just put a snare in 540. Okay. Roll this back to here. Yeah, this is going to be pretty cool. Okay. Now I had talked about how you like to keep these down at 15 and 16 so that they alternate, but for this is not going to be that big a deal. So I'm just going to clear out that pattern I had done before, because here, actually, check it out. This is what this sounds like at normal time. that's at half the speed that we just resampled it at. So we're gonna do just like this. And then we'll go to the kick. And then we're going to try to throw this in. Okay, let's just, we'll keep messing around here and try to get to a bass line. I think what's happening here is there's, it's just a little long. I think it doesn't need that last one. So what we're gonna do is put the amp EG on here and then just tail it out. This actually sounds like a Cool Kids beat, which is really pretty dope. So one of the other things we can do is try to swing out this hi-hat a little. And, if we go just to the main menu, and we're going to swing it, just start something like 15%. Maybe even 10. And then I had done this on the world beat pattern I put up before, but they have these things, what do they call them? Groove types. So what this does is it's per part can have a different groove, and the groove is a way that it varies the intensity of each hit to a sound. Actually, we don't even have to use the swing since it's kind of a straight beat already. So we'll turn the swing off and go back to groove type. So I believe if we hit, is it shift part mute? No, it's double part mute. That's a solo. So now we're just listening to this. And we have part 4 selected here. And I like to put groove depth on all the way so that you can hear what's happening. Okay, and then if we change the groove, I think that might be kind of cool actually, but then we'll pull back the groove depth a little. And that's just making the variation in dynamics between the hardest hit and the softest hit less. Okay, so that's really cool. I like that. What I'd like to do next is copy this over to another file, and then we'll look at how to chain this to a second pattern so that it can vary itself. The other thing is we can add another hi-hat. So what we're going to do is write this to this file, write this to the next file, and now we're switched to the next file, and we will solo our hi-hat. And again, we can just cut out that that groove there and double time it. 170. Before we had something like this. So now it's got the groove applied to it, which I don't think we're going to want, so I'm going to pull that groove off. And let's look at something like this. Yeah, so that's a cool variation. Okay, so we are going back into resample mode. Oh, I accidentally got 2, so I'm going to exit that. Hit it again. Oh, I'm having trouble hitting the stop key here, so let's see if I can get it. Okay, cool. So we'll write that. 541. Okay, and now we're going to take this sequence we had here, set it back to something more that. We're going to turn off that other roll we had. Actually, we can put our new roll on this one. Okay. So that's what it sounds like at double time. So we're going to time this back. This may not be the fastest way of doing this. This is the first time I've tried this, so we'll see if there's a better workflow for double timing samples like this. Okay, now so I'm gonna just apply that groove back on to the fourth part. Is that like 80 or something? It's fine. And then let's look at, that's our bass part, even though it's really high. So we'll just let it sit like that. Okay. Then we are going to go back to 153. Chain repeat. 1. So this is how many times it plays before it chains to the next one, and we just want them to alternate back and forth. There's two ways we could have done this. Another way we could have done this is to change our length to 2, and then in the second slot here, we would have gotten a duplicate of whatever we had assigned, and we could build out our part to be up to 4 lengths, 4 times its length. The limitation of that is once, it only duplicates the first time. So if you're not done, if you're not in a reasonable place where you like what you have laid out, it can be a little more slow and tedious to do it that way. There are probably a number. The other thing is that it limits you to the amount of automation you could do, to the way you could change the sound in the second bar. So regardless, we are going to chain this to 154. Right? And then you see it goes 153, 154, 0, 1 out of 0, 1. So we're just going to switch to 154 here, and we're going to chain it to 153 so that it alternates. This is an example, but you could lay out an entire song this way, which is pretty cool. They added this in the 2.0 firmware, so if your firmware isn't up to date, you're going to want to get that. Also, you're going to want to keep your files saved and up to date because it's going to be switching between them, so I'm not sure if it retains changes or not. Usually it wouldn't, but we'll flip it back to 153 to 154 and 154, 153. Here we go. Well, I'm pretty happy with that.